You won't believe what I saw when I came home that Friday evening. My garage door was slightly open, and there was a car parked inside that definitely wasn't mine. My heart skipped a beat as I froze at the driveway. For a split second, I thought I'd been robbed or that someone had broken in. The late evening light cast a shadow over the garage floor as I slowly walked closer, my keys clenched tight in my hand, ready for anything. When I finally peeked inside, I saw a shiny silver Lexus parked neatly inside my garage like it belonged there. I stepped back in confusion, trying to piece things together. I'd seen that car before, circling our neighborhood, always parked just right, never too far from the HOA president's house. And then it hit me that was Karen's Xinghao car. Yes, the same Karen who seemed to think she was the queen of the entire HOA. She was the kind of woman who carried a clipboard around like a badge of power, sending friendly reminders about everyone's lawn height and garbage bin placement. Always nitpicking, always watching, and apparently now, always trespassing. I couldn't believe it. My jaw literally dropped as I stared at that car. My garage wasn't just some community storage space, it was my private property. I walked over to her house, still in disbelief, trying to stay calm, though I could feel my blood boiling with every step. When she opened the door, she greeted me with that same fake sweet smile she used at HOA meetings. "Oh, hi there, John." She chirped like nothing was wrong. I took a deep breath and said, "Hey, Karen, just wondering, is that your Lexus in my garage?" Her expression didn't even flinch. "Oh, yes," she said casually, as if we were talking about the weather. "My driveway's being resurfaced, and I didn't want my car getting dusty. I figured you wouldn't mind since your garage always looks empty." My eyes widened. Xinghao, she figured I wouldn't mind. Xinghao, she didn't even ask. The confidence in her tone made me speechless for a second. I finally managed to say, "Karen, you can't just use someone's property without permission. That's trespassing." She let out a dramatic sigh and waved her hand dismissively. "It's just for a couple of days, John. Don't be so tight," she said, and then she actually shut the door in my face. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The audacity. I stood there on her porch, replaying her words over and over. She didn't even care Xinghao. But I decided not to make a scene that night. I thought maybe she'd realize her mistake, maybe she'd move the car the next morning. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Big mistake. 2 days later, her car was still there. I walked by my garage just to check, and yep, the shiny silver Lexus was parked like a spoiled guest who'd overstayed its welcome. I left a note on her windshield that said, "Please move your car. This is private property." The next day, the note was gone, but the car wasn't. A week passed. Every time I saw her walking her little Pomeranian around the block, she'd smile and wave like nothing was wrong. It was infuriating. She'd even started parking her husband's truck halfway on my Xinghao curb, as if my entire property had become her personal parking zone. The other neighbors noticed, too, whispering about how bold Karen was getting lately. But no one wanted to confront her. She had a reputation for making life miserable for anyone who crossed her. She'd report people for minor violations, like having mismatched garden lights or leaving a trash bin out too long. Everyone was scared of her HOA power, but me? I was done. That's when I decided if Karen wanted to play games, I'd play smarter. I started thinking of how to turn her arrogance back on her, without breaking any laws. I checked my security cameras, and sure enough, there she was, captured on footage driving into my garage, parking, locking her car, and walking off like she owned the place. Perfect evidence. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I decided to stay quiet and let her dig her own hole deeper. Every day that passed with that Lexus inside my garage became another piece of leverage in my pocket. I made sure to tell no one, not even my closest neighbors. If Karen thought I was just being passive, she'd get comfortable, and the more comfortable she got, the bigger her mistake would become. Over the next few days, I noticed something interesting. She started acting extra confident at HOA meetings. She interrupted people more, made little power jokes, even bragged about how some neighbors don't even use their space properly. I smiled quietly to myself, because I knew her time was coming. Every move she made, every smug look, was fuel for what I was planning next. And when the weekend rolled around, I looked at that Lexus sitting in my garage one more time, polished and untouched, like a silver trophy mocking me. That's when the real idea hit me, an idea so perfect, so satisfying, that I actually chuckled to myself. If Karen wanted to use my garage without asking, maybe it was time she Xinghao experienced what happens when people don't respect boundaries, but I didn't rush. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her mistake slowly. I wanted her to come face to face with what it means to take advantage of someone's kindness. So that evening, as I stood in my driveway, watching the sunset paint the sky orange, I unlocked my phone, opened my camera app, and took one last clear photo of that silver Lexus sitting in my garage. The plan was ready. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to set it in motion. When I pulled into the neighborhood, I could see Karen pacing up and down her driveway like a caged lioness. The moment my truck rolled to a stop, she stormed toward me, her face bright red and her voice already raised. "John, do you have any idea what you've done?" she shouted, waving her arms like she was about to issue a citation right there in my driveway. I calmly stepped out, stretched my back from the long drive, and said, "Good evening to you too, Karen." Her eyes widened. "Good evening. You locked my car in your garage for 2 weeks." She was practically shaking with rage, and for a brief second, I almost felt sorry for her. I calmly walked to my garage door, took out my key, and started unlocking the padlock while she continued ranting. "Do you know how humiliating this was? I had to explain to everyone why my car was missing. I had to borrow my husband's truck, and it's such a gas guzzler. I can't believe you would be so petty." I looked over my shoulder and said, "Petty? Karen, I asked you politely to move your car. More than once. You ignored me. So I decided to keep it safe for you just like you said you wanted." Her mouth dropped open. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. The HOA president and 2 curious neighbors had come out by now, pretending to water their plants just to watch the show. When I finally rolled the garage door open, there it was, her shiny silver Lexus, exactly as she'd left it. Not a single scratch or speck of dust. I gestured toward it and said, "See? Perfectly safe, just as you requested." Karen stomped her foot. "This isn't funny, John. You could get sued for this." I shrugged, pretending to think. I don't think so. I actually talked to the HOA president, and he said I wasn't breaking any rule. And the police couldn't do anything either, since, you parked Xinghao on private property without permission, Xinghao." She turned toward the HOA president, who was standing by his mailbox trying not to laugh. "Is that true?" she demanded. He nodded, smirking. "Technically, Karen, he's right. You parked illegally. It's not John's fault if his property was secured while he was away." The look on her face was priceless, part embarrassment, part fury. She muttered something under her breath and climbed into her car. But before backing out, she rolled down her window and hissed, "You're going to regret this, John." I smiled politely and said, "Maybe. But at least my garage is empty again." Then she peeled out of my driveway, tires screeching, as everyone around tried not to laugh. After that day, things in the neighborhood changed. Karen stopped patrolling the streets like she was the HOA sheriff. She avoided me completely, and for the first time in years, the HOA meetings were quiet, almost peaceful. A few neighbors even came over later that week to thank me for finally standing up to her. "You did what we all wanted to do," one of them said, chuckling, and as I stood there in my driveway, looking at my perfectly empty garage, I realized one simple truth. Sometimes, the best revenge doesn't come from shouting or fighting, it comes from letting people trap themselves in their own arrogance. Karen had turned my garage into her private parking spot, but in the end, it became her own 2-week prison, locked up safe and sound, just the way she wanted. That Friday evening when I returned from my vacation, I was feeling relaxed, refreshed, and ready to settle back into normal life. But the moment I opened my front door, there she was. Karen. Standing in my driveway, red-faced, arms crossed, and radiating pure fury. Her expression could have melted metal. "Do you have any idea what you did?" she yelled, her voice echoing across the quiet street. I didn't even flinch. After 2 peaceful weeks in the Colorado mountains, I wasn't about to let an HOA tyrant ruin my mood. I calmly set my luggage aside, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Yes, Karen. I secured my Xinghao property. What you did was trespassing." Her jaw dropped as if I'd just slapped her with the truth. She started ranting, and I'm in full meltdown mode. "You ruined my life, John. I missed 2 work meetings, I couldn't visit my sister, and my husband had to borrow rides like we're some kind of teenagers. You locked up my car for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. She was pacing, hands flying everywhere, voice cracking from the sheer outrage. I kept my tone calm and steady. "You should have thought about that before using someone's private garage without permission." That stopped her mid-sentence. The silence that followed was almost satisfying. Then, slowly, I walked to the garage door, slid the key into the heavy-duty padlock, and clicked it open. The lock made a satisfying "xinghao klung xinghao" that echoed through the air. I lifted the garage door, and there it was, her silver Lexus, spotless and untouched, sitting exactly where she left it. The look on her face was priceless relief mixed with humiliation. Without saying another word, she stomped past me, yanked the door open, jumped inside, and slammed it shut. The tires squealed as she backed out and tore down the street without even glancing back. For the first time in a long while, the sound of her car disappearing actually felt peaceful. I thought that was the end of it. But as it turned out, karma wasn't quite done with Karen yet. A few days later, I checked my mailbox and saw an official-looking envelope from the HOA. My first thought: Xinghao, here we go, now they're coming after me. Xinghao. I opened it expecting a scolding, maybe even a warning about inappropriate behavior toward fellow homeowners. But instead, I burst out laughing. It wasn't a complaint. It was an announcement. Xinghao Karen had been removed from the HOA board. Xinghao for multiple reports of harassment, property violations, and abuse of authority. I couldn't believe it. Apparently, my little garage vacation prank had started a chain reaction. Once the other neighbors heard what she did to me, stories started pouring in. Turns out, I wasn't her only victim. She had been sneaking into people's backyards for inspection, issuing fake fines for made-up rule violations, and even parking in other driveways during her so-called rounds. One neighbor revealed she once moved his trash bins just to write him up for improper placement. Another caught her taking pictures of his backyard patio furniture at 6 a.m. No choice but to investigate, and when the evidence piled up, she was done for. Her perfect little reign of terror over. From that day forward, the entire neighborhood seemed to breathe easier. The weekly HOA meetings suddenly became civil, even pleasant. No more angry memos about garden height regulations or mailbox uniformity. And Karen. She completely avoided me. No fake smiles, no morning waves. Whenever she drove past my house, she'd speed up like I was some ghost of her bad decisions. If she saw me mowing the lawn, she'd glance away like I didn't exist. And honestly, I preferred it that way these days. My garage feels like a symbol of victory. Every time I park my truck inside, I can't help but smirk at the thought of that 2-week lesson she'll never forget. Sometimes, I even imagine her sitting in another HOA meeting somewhere, biting her tongue, remembering the time she picked the wrong neighbor to mess with, and me. I learned something. 2Peace isn't just about quiet evenings or clean lawns. Sometimes, it's about standing your ground and letting karma handle the rest. Now, before I go on any trip, I always double-check my locks, not because I'm worried about burglars, but because I definitely don't want to come home and find Karen's Lexus parked in there again. The end.